Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Harvest Community Church. It's great to be worshiping Jesus with all of you, and just a beautiful, beautiful day. I am Pastor Jeremy. I'm the lead pastor here at Harvest, and I'm really excited to jump into our next step in our High Road Relationship series. So we're just going to do that this morning. First of all, I do want to just say something. If you're here and you were here on Easter or here last week, you heard me issue the 6-week challenge. It takes 6 weeks to build your relationships, and so you were here last week and you're back this week. I just want to say, well done. Let's keep it going. I really believe these next few weeks are going to really do something for the relationships in your life. It also means that this next little bit is going to be a little bit of a review. And so let me just kind of give you an idea of where the series is and where we're going. First of all, as I mentioned last week, obviously this series is based on things we see about Jesus' teaching in the Bible, but it's also somewhat inspired by two books that I highly recommend for you and your reading. The first one is a book called High Road Leadership by John Maxwell. He basically takes the concepts that I'm using. Actually, I'm mostly stealing the concepts from him, but he starts off by doing it at the leadership level instead of the relationship level. But this is one of the best books I have ever read. The other one is actually John Maxwell also partnered with a pastor named Chris Hodges, and they wrote a book called Jesus, the High Road Leader. John Maxwell was a pastor for 25 years before he went into the business and leadership community. He tells everybody point blank he learned everything he needed to learn from the Bible, and so the books he writes are based on that, and they all look at Jesus. And so he partnered with a pastor to write how Jesus demonstrates the things that we're learning about in this series. Both of these books are on sale at our coffee shop. You can get them for $15 a piece, which is less than you would get them for at an Amazon or that kind of thing. And so I highly encourage that you add those to your library. But kind of basically, this is how this series works, okay? We're looking at relationships, and relationships really do impact more things in your life than just about anything else, all right? Like if you are really succeeding at life, like you're just nailing it, like you're just doing great things, but you have one or two relationships that are completely out of sorts, you don't see or feel or experience the full joy of that success because that stressful relationship saps from you. Conversely, you can be absolutely just falling apart in a lot of areas in life, but if you've got one or two people that love you and believe in you and cheer you on, like it's way better than the bad stuff seems to be because those relationships sustain you over time. Relationships are so important to your joy and your significance in life. Now, as we said last week, every single relationship offers two things, every single one of them. The first thing they offer is opportunities. And some of these opportunities are just normal things that we need. You know, is we need to be known. We need to be loved. We don't want to be lonely. And so relationships give us those opportunities. Relationships give us practical opportunities. I mentioned last week that I've never gotten a job, going all the way back to my first job as a teenager, I have never gotten a job that the door wasn't open to me by a relationship I had. It wasn't resume. It wasn't this. It was simply someone knew me and opened the door for that job. So they have practical opportunities. The second thing that all relationships have is this: all relationships have conflict. And it's in those moments of conflict that we get to decide what kind of relationship it is going to be. Is it going to be a relationship that's filled with joy and significance, or is it going to be a relationship that is not? And it's in those places of conflict that we have to make some decisions, and the key decisions we have to make is which road of relationship we're going to take. There's three opportunities in every single conflict with every single relationship. And the first opportunity we have is what we call the low road. What does the low road do? The low road looks at relationships in only the win-lose category. We want to win. We don't care if the other person loses. And so what's the key question is this, is what do I gain from this relationship? I need to win, so that's because I want to gain whatever I believe is I need to gain in that relationship. The attitude is this: that person owes me, so they should do this for me. They owe me, so they will do this for me. And if you hold on to this view of relationships, you will develop a victim mentality, selfishness, your ego, win at all cost. You'll see in just a few moments on the screen, but the low road basically approaches a relationship like this. In a conflict, there's a bridge. And how do you cross the bridge? In the low road, what it is I'm going to throw a rope across the bridge, lasso the person, and I'm going to drag them to my side at all costs because I have to win in this particular conflict. Now, here's the thing. We think that creates winners out of life because we're going to win. But the reality is that the other person always loses, And then over time, if you develop a reputation where you only can win at relationship, you're not going to have very many of them. So the reality is the low road produces lose-lose situations in relationship. So then you got the middle road. How does the middle road work? Well, the middle road would be like in the bridge of conflict, both of you come to the middle to try to negotiate your differences. The key question is this fair? Is this fair? The attitude is, I've received this much, so I'll give this much. You've done this for me, therefore I will do that for you. And so we meet in the middle, and it values fairness, compromise, negotiation. That's usually how we get told what a healthy relationship looks like. It's give and take, 50-50. You give some, they give some. There's compromise, that kind of thing. And here's the thing. All relationships have an element of this. And there are certain places where you have to have this type of relationship, legal issues, those kinds of things. And we think, when we hear it, that this creates winners on both sides. We both know how we win because we both come to the middle. But in reality, what this does is it actually defines winning and losing. It defines winning and losing. In other words, if you've got two good-natured people that are committed to their word and that kind of stuff, the negotiation, the 50-50, it'll work just fine. But if at some point in time in life your values change or their values change or circumstances change or they break their word or you break your word, what instantly happens is you define what a winner and what a loser looks like. You essentially define winning and losing. And you'll win, some of you will win more than you lose. But sooner or later, there's going to be losers on this road. So then you have what we call the high road. What does the high road ask? The high road asks this: what's the most loving thing I can do in this moment? What's the most loving thing I can do for that person right now in this moment? The attitude is this, is I will give because I love you. I will give because I love you. And it values grace. It values finding the best in others. It values not being worried about being repaid. On the chart of the bridge of conflict, what happens is you step back and you go, I love and value that person, that relationship enough that I'm going to cross the bridge into their world to see if we can find a solution that creates an ongoing relationship. And what we said last week is the theme verse for our series, the theme verse for the high road is this, is Micah 6:8, where the people of God in the Old Testament are running away from God. They're starting to try to figure out how do we come back. And so what they think they're supposed to do is worship better or follow certain laws better. And Micah comes and says, no. This is what has to happen for you to have a great relationship with God. It says you got to do justice. You got to love mercy. You got to walk humbly. And as I mentioned last week, you can't do justice to God. God is perfectly just. You certainly can't show God mercy. God is the one who shows mercy to you. So what Micah is actually telling us is this is how we treat others. And so we kind of put Micah 6:8 in some relationship language and said, what does the high road look like? The high road does the right thing. Does the right thing in the situation, does the right thing by the other person. The high road believes the best about others until there's a time in which you can't anymore. And that's showing them mercy. And then you engage others with a desire to learn and grow. You see, you do the right thing, that is justice. You believe the best about others, that is mercy. I will engage the others with a desire to learn and grow, that is humility. And that is the way of the high road. And we talked about some of the benefits. Now, there are challenges on the high road, and one of the challenges is that if you're going to walk the high road, you're going to have to see people the way God sees people. And you're going to have to value people the way God values people. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And my key thought for us is this. If you need people, you can't lead people. I'm going to explain what that means in just a moment. We value people when we treat them treat them like image bearers of God. And so that's where we're going to go this morning. So let me pray for us, and we'll jump into our topic. So Lord God, first of all, I just thank you so much. Lord, I thank you that you did create us in your image. Lord, that you made us valuable. And then, Lord, that not only that you constantly are working to restore us to that image. So, Lord, today as we look at your tremendous value on us, you look at how much you love and care for us, Lord, I ask that you would inspire us to treat people according to the value of the image that you've put on them. So Lord, as always, I ask that you'd honor your word and honor your people as I speak. In your name we pray, amen. I'm going to give you just a little bit of an illustration here. This is a Coke. Just normal Coke. You can get this Coke at Walmart. Nothing particularly special about this Coke. I love Coke, by the way. Coke and bread are probably the single biggest enemy to my waistline. It's killing me right now not to be able to drink this thing. I really love a good Coke. But this is just a regular, normal, ordinary Coke. You can get it. It's probably, someone gave it to me a while back. It's just been sitting on my desk for reasons I don't know about. But anyway, it's there. That is an ordinary Coke. Now this is not an ordinary Coke. This is a commemorative edition of the 1983 NC State Basketball National Championship. Yes, it is. Now, for those of you who are newer and you're sitting there going, why is the audience laughing? Okay, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from North Carolina. My wife and I are NC State alumni. That is where we met. No, I was not there in 1983. I look good for my age, but I don't look that good for my age, all right? But this is the commemorative sports event for my university. In fact, even today when you watch the NCAA tournament, you'll still see the pictures going back to the cardiac pack and Jimmy Valvano running around the floor. And then Jimmy V goes on and starts the V Foundation for Cancer Research. And that's the commemorative that's the big thing. And then on top of it, this is where my wife and I met. This is where we got to know one another. For the first few years of our relationship, we did a lot of things in NC State. For the first few years of our marriage, in fact, our regular date night was we bought season tickets to basketball. Now, by season tickets, I mean the one where they give you the oxygen tank way up at the top. I mean, it's not, but 2 or 3 nights a week, we were at the basketball arena watching our team play because that's kind of how we built. My wife loves sports. I love sports. We do all kinds of fun things together. So there's all kinds of associations with that. Then on top of it, the reason I have this is because it was actually my grandfather's. And I don't know why, because my grandfather had no association with North Carolina, but for whatever reason, for a period of time, he collected commemorative editions of national championships. And after he died, my parents found this in his collection and gave it to me. So on top of all those other things, I've got associated with this memories of my grandfather, memories of fishing and hunting and just having a good time and talking about sports and all that he meant to my life is all wrapped up in this bottle of Coke. This is not ordinary Coke. Now here's the thing, as you know, if I were to open it, it loses its value. It's part of it being a collector's addiction. It needs to stay closed. If I drank this Coke, you wouldn't care at all. But if I were to open this one right here, right now, even though this bottle might not mean anything to you, all of you would instantly gasp because you would understand that I've just devalued something that should have great value to me. It has value because of what it represents. It has value because of what it represents. This is regular. This is common. This is ordinary. This has great value because of all the things it represents to me and who I am. Now, I'm going to come back to that in just a second, but before I do, I want to add one other little analogy to it. Let's just pretend, for whatever reason, it's in the middle of the week, and I forget to clean all this up, except I clean everything up but that one Coke. I'll leave it here on the lectern for whatever reason. And you, for some crazy reason, have not had anything to drink for 3 days, and pretend it's hot and terrible, and you're feeling awful, and for whatever reason, you wander into the worship center, and you see the Coke, and everything in your body is telling you, I am going to die if I don't get something to drink. And even though there's a water fountain just out there, it doesn't matter. Everything in your body is telling you, I've got to have something to drink. Do you see the value of the Coke anymore? No. You open it, you drink it. Why? Because your body is telling you you need something to drink. Even if you wait a couple of seconds, it does not matter. You just need it. So you don't care about the differences. You can't see the value. John Maxwell, in his book, High Road Leadership, says this: if you need people, you can't lead people. And I just want, for the sake of our series, just swap out lead for value. Because a great leader, all a great leader does is add value to your life. You see, here's what happens when you stay on the middle and the low road of relationship, is over time, you build relationships purely on need. I need this out of you. I need this out of you. I need this out of you. And then when I don't get it, I'm going to win, or we're going to negotiate. But in reality, what ends up happening is you can't actually value them because you're parched and you don't take time to see the value. To walk the high road, we have to be able to see the value, which means we have to build relationships on something other than need. So how do we do that? How do we value people? Well, it first of all starts with how we view God. Last week we looked at this verse. Jesus calls this the most important verse in the Bible. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. I mentioned this last week. This verse is only about relationship. It's about relationship, two of them. Relationship with God and then relationship with your neighbor, which in this context is everybody. It's everybody. And so what Jesus tells us are two very important relationship truths. One is how you relate to God is how you're going to relate to people. But then also how you love God by loving other people. So if you want to step and see the value in somebody, you're going to have to make sure that you have your value with God right. If you've got your value of God wrong, you're going to have your value of people wrong. So how do we know if we've got our value with God right? This is a quote by one of my favorite theologians of all time. His name is A.W. Tozer, wrote a great book called Knowledge of the Whole, and he talks about how we view God, and it says something really crazy. He says this: the idolatrous heart assumes that God is other than he is. The idolatrous heart doesn't worship an idol, doesn't worship something that is false, doesn't go out. I mean, they end up there, but it starts with assuming something wrong about God. Now, if you've not grown up in the church, in the Old Testament, people of God, they would often be accused of worshiping idols, which is worshiping false gods or worshiping things other than the true God. And so, but if you grew up in the church, you're used to thinking about idolatry as the stone structures of idols in the ancient world. And so we're used to thinking about idols as being out there. It is out there, something that's out there that is false and blah, blah, blah. We worship whatever's out there. But what A.W. Tozer is telling us is, no. It's right in here. Idolatry starts in here. It's thinking wrongly about God. Last week I mentioned it, like, how do you view God? Like, if you view God as a means to an end, in other words, you're not really interested in knowing God, but you're just trying to figure out how to have God bless your life. I want God's healing, or I want God's blessing, or I want this, and so I'm going to do all the right things because I want that from God. That's actually just low road thinking. I want God to do something for me. And then when God doesn't come through the way that you want him to come through, you step back and go, see, God's not good. God's not good. No. That's not the issue. The issue is you assume something wrong about God. Really, you wanted God to play your game. Really, you wanted to be God, and you just want God who's got a little more power to do what you want. Or we've negotiated with God. Everybody in the Old Testament negotiated with God. I'll do this if you do this. I'll do this if you do this. And then when you do that and God doesn't hold up his end of the bargain, as you say, see, God doesn't matter. God's not good, blah, blah, blah. No. That's not the issue. That's not the issue. You assume something wrong about God. So you're worshiping something that doesn't exist. When you've got a bad idea about God, it changes your relationship with him. But then it also changes how you see other people. Let me just throw something out there for you. If the idolatrous heart assumes something about God that's not right, then the core of bigotry assumes that a person has less worth than the value God puts on them. If idolatry is assuming something wrong about God, then bigotry is assuming something wrong about the value that God places on humanity. About the value that God places on others. The moment we take a person from his value before God down a level, we've entered into the realm of bigotry. And by the way, I know that's a harsh word. I know it's a difficult word. I've tried to find other words to use. My problem is that so many other words that mean the same thing have been co-opted by so many different interests that they don't mean what they used to mean anymore. So that's why I use such a harsh word to help you understand it. But when we think wrongly about a person's value in the eyes of God, when we move into the realm of bigotry. Let me just show you practically how it works on the different roads. Okay, now for the sake of this, I had it flipped by accident, but this is really the middle road. This is the low road, okay? So here's how relationships typically work, all right? On the middle road, we've negotiated things out. We're treating each other as equals. We're working everything out so that we agree, okay? And so things go along just fine until all of a sudden we don't. And then all of a sudden we don't agree on something. And so maybe you're here and you're like, I'm going to go back to them. I'm going to remind them. I'm going to be good faith effort to try to work something out. And the other person just flat out will not move. They won't come back to the table. They won't come back to the agreement. And so after trying that for a while, what is the first place that we think about doing? We go to a place of dehumanizing them. We see them as less valuable. Well, that person is just fill in the blank. Well, that person just always fill in the blank. And so we start to accuse them of things that may or may not be true, but they're less than the value that God has placed on them. Why? Because we feel better about creating a war in which we drag them to our side at all costs. We start to treat them as less than they really are because we're not getting our way. By the way, if I may, as your loving pastor that's going to put on some boots and stomp on a few toes, this is how politics works. It used to be civil, but it would still drive me crazy. Years ago, you'd watch a presidential candidate, and they would all come out, all of them. They'd all come out, and what do they say? We want what's best for the country. I'm going to run a positive campaign. I just want to talk about all the good things that we're going to do together as people because across the aisle, we all love the great country that we live in. And then what happens? They spend the next 18 months dehumanizing, devaluing, saying the same things. They're all Nazi, communist, social thugs, whatever the words are. They start coming out saying all the nasty things because they want to win. And then once they win, what do? I just want to bring the country back together. And that's what we watch to figure out how to do relationships in a healthy way. The moment we devalue someone, we've moved into a realm of bigotry. We've moved into a realm where we don't see them as God created them. So how do we not go there? We go there by understanding how God values us. So how does God value us? The value of God is placed on us in two key ways. There's a bunch of ways, but there's two primary ways that God values us. The first place that God values us is He created us in His image. He created us in His image. You are not common creation. He created all things. But you are not common creation. When He created humanity, God says that He put the image of God in them. Let's make man after our image, after our likeness. So He created them, male and female. He created them, and then He blessed them. In other words, He created you to represent Him, which means you reflect great value. You, by yourself, all as you are, reflect who God is in a way that nothing else in creation sees. In fact, all of creation is supposed to be looking at you and going, man, that's really the supreme of who God is and how they created humanity to reflect Him. You are not common. He put intrinsic value in you because you represent Him. Now here's the problem. We sinned. We rebelled. We are a distorted, broken image of God. We just are. But here's the thing. God didn't leave us there. God didn't leave us in that broken, distorted image. He took the high road to you because He restores us to His image. He restores us to His image. He doesn't keep you in that broken, run-down, poor reflection of who He is. He restores us to His image. How did He do that? He took the high road. Jesus came into our realm, crossed the bridge of conflict into our realm because He's interested in us, He loves us, and He wants to build significance in your life. And there, he experienced all the pain and tragedy and horror of the brokenness of our image, even taking on the greatest result of that brokenness, which is death, and then defeated it by his resurrection so that he could restore you to who you really are. You see, God is about the business of restoring you to who you really are because he took the high road with you. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians, it says this, and we all, with unveiled faces, beholding the glory of Jesus, are being, notice this, transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to the other. In other words, what happened? You, broken, distorted image of God, walking around, struggling, not getting anything right. All of a sudden you see Jesus and you understand Jesus. You put your faith in Jesus. And as you follow after Jesus, what happens? He transforms you into the same image. What is he transforming you into? Into who you were supposed to be. Back to the image of God, back to an accurate reflection of the glory of God. Does he do it all at once? No, from one degree of glory to the other. You just get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit more, low road, middle road, high road, as God works to restore you to who you really are. Why? Because he values you. Because he put his value on you. Now, this has a tremendous practical application. And the practical application is this, is God is always about the business of calling you back to who you really are. How does he do that? He does it through his word. He does it through the Holy Spirit. He's not there dogging you for all your mistakes and all that kind of stuff. No. He's calling you back to who you really are. Like, well, what does that mean, Jeremy? It means this. All the commands of the Bible are God calling us to be who we really are. You read something in the Bible and it tells you to do something. He's not there to judge and condemn you. I mean, there's things that got to be corrected, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is, hey, you were made like this. Be that. Let me just give you an example. Paul says this in Colossians. He writes and says, listen, do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after what? The image of its creator. You're being restored to the creator. How? Here's how. Don't lie. Put off the old broken image. Put on the new restored image because you're being made to be who you really are. See, now here's the thing. Do not lie is one of the 10 Commandments. And it wasn't written to sit there going, oh, you dirty, rotten liars, how dare you. No. Here's how it's supposed to work, right? God is a God of truth. God is a God that's so magnificent in his truth. He can't conceive of a lie, and he actually can't lie at all. So God comes to his people and says, listen, you were made to reflect me. You were made to love the truth and enjoy the truth and magnify the truth, be overwhelmed by the beauty and the joy of the truth. So be who you are and stop lying. Put off the old self, walk into the new self, come back to who you really are. A person made for the truth. A person made for the truth. Because you're made after the image of God. You see, value in walking on the high road treats people according to the image of God by doing the most loving thing for them. You're dealing with somebody, you treat them according to the image of God, who they're really called to be, who Jesus died to restore them to be, by doing the most loving thing for them. Now this, again, has some practical applications. How do you treat people according to the image of God? Well, to do that, you need to do some practical things, and to do that, you've got to have a heart change towards people. So what are some practical things that you have to do to value people? Practical actions. Number one, express belief in them. Express belief in them. All right? We're here to encourage people to be who they really are. So we get to express and encourage that belief in who they really are. Not who they are right now, who they're called to be. Bible says this in 1 Thessalonians, actually 4:1, we got the reference wrong, but it's 1 Thessalonians 4:1 says this, therefore encourage one another and build one another up just as you are doing. Like you're charged as valuing people in the image of God to encourage them, to love them, to build them up, to call things out. We're constantly going around like, listen, this is who God made you to be. You can be that. Go for it. I believe in you. Listen, behind Pastor Jeremy is a long line of people encouraging and calling out ministry and calling in me. Going all the way back to some random lady at a Bible study when I was 10 years old that looked at me and said, he's called to be a pastor. Way back. And it called something out. It called something about who God made me to be. And there's a line of people, whether it's ministry or family or being a husband or being a father, a long line of people that calls out who I'm supposed to be because they encourage me, because they believe in me, because they value me. Listen, I absolutely love calling things out of people. And it doesn't always have to be complicated. I was in my youth group. I was, I don't know, 15, 16 years old. There was a kid in our church, and he had a little bit of a troubled family, a troubled past. And one day, for whatever reason, he was junior high. One day, for whatever reason, he was over at my house. And I'd just been learning to play the guitar, leading worship, playing the guitar, doing rhythm guitar, that kind of thing. And for whatever reason, this little guy, there was a drum. I don't even know how the drum got there, but all of a sudden, he's just in my living room, just ripping the thing apart, man, just ripping it apart. And so I'm just watching him do it, and I'm like, man, that's pretty good. And so his mom comes to pick him up and says, hey, man, you got to get a guitar in his hands. Anybody that understands rhythm like that, he needs to know how to play guitar. Parents went out, bought him a guitar. Next thing you know, he's one of the most natural guitar players that I've ever met, just blowing it out. And on top of it, he had the most perfect Creed cover voice I've ever heard in my life. Our youth group was in the late 90s, early 2000s. Let me tell you, when we were leading worship, I don't care what kind of youth group you came out of, at any point in time, whatever, our worship was always better. There's no debate, forget it, we win. But it just brought out this music in him, and all I did was say, get the boy a guitar. I just saw something for just a moment. It wasn't big, but it called something out. And the second thing that we have to do if we value people is you got to equip them. Put things in their hands that allow them to be who God's called them to be. The Bible says this in Proverbs. It says this, do not withhold good from those whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again, tomorrow I'll give it to you when you have it with you. Like, put what you have in their hands so they can do the things that God has called them to do. Be the people that God has called them to be. By the way, can I just say this? Midwesterners, you guys are really good at this. All right, like I've never met I'm from the South, remember, and we got our strengths in the South, but let me tell you, in terms of putting things in people's hands to serve them, it is phenomenal. I am between lawnmowers right now. And this week, I need to mow my grass, so I'll call one of my friends, and all of a sudden, I get back a long text message. Here's how you get it. This is where you get it. This is blah, blah. I've done this. I've done this. I've done this. I've done this. I was like, whoa. You didn't have to take the lawnmower to the shop. I just needed to mow my grass. All right? Like, you guys are great at that. But you know what? We can do more than just practical put things in the hand. We can do things like look for ways. Some of you are really good at building people's lives. You don't even know it. There's something you're really good about. And if you just put it in people's hands, you can transform them. Like, I love connecting pastors with pastors. I love connecting pastors with resources. You want to know what else I really like? Like it's like a little thrill thing for me. I love getting people jobs. I love getting people jobs. Like, I've done it. I don't know, half a dozen times, something like that. I love when people need a job, finding better jobs for them. When I go out and I have lunches with business people in the church, I will ask them, what kind of people do you hire? Are you hiring? What kind of things are you looking for? And then why? Because I'm a pastor. People lose their jobs in the church. It comes over the prayer chain. I find out, and I'll sit there and go, does this match what I know is out there? And I'll connect people. I don't get a finder's fee. It doesn't benefit me in one way. I just get a thrill out of getting people a better job. And it happens. Doesn't happen always, but like, it's just, I want to equip you to be a better version of who you really are, who you're called to be. Third thing you got to be willing to do is you got to be willing to challenge them. You got to be willing to challenge them. Again, Bible says this, better is open rebuke than hidden love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Profuse are the kisses of the enemy. I told our teenagers that sit on the front row in the first service, so if you're here and you're a teenager or my age or younger, let me just help you out with something, okay? This is so anti your culture. If you've got someone in your life that's just looking up at you and you go, oh, you're just the greatest thing ever, I can't believe how amazing you are, you're going to do great, blah, 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 blah. Be careful. Be careful. But if you've got that teacher or you've got that coach or you've got that person in your life that at times you just feel like is just riding you hard and occasionally says something they shouldn't say or occasionally embarrasses you, there's a good chance that they want something good for your life. See, there's two types of challenges that you need to know on the high road. One is just the challenge that encourages you on is the coach that calls you out and says, there's more in you. You can do more. I can pull it out of you. We're going to work hard. I'm not talking about criticism. Criticism is I'm going to keep you down because I want you on the low road where I always win. That's criticism. Challenge is, no. I want more for you. So I'm going to push and push and push and get you to where you need to be. It's challenge number one. Here's challenge number two. I said this at the end of my message last week. I want to clarify it a little bit more today. The high road is not an excuse to return to a damaging situation. High road is not an excuse to go back to an abusive situation. High road is not an excuse to put yourself because you know Jesus would love them, so I guess I have to as well. That's not what the high road is. The high road is calling people in your life to be who God made them to be. So let me give you a for instance. What happens if I know someone that is in a relationship where the spouse is constantly, consistently, willfully cheating? What do I tell the other spouse? I say, here's what you do. You go back to your spouse and you say this: God is perfectly faithful. In fact, he's so faithful, he laid down his life to rescue a faithless bride. There's nothing in God that would ever think about being faithless. And you are called to be made in the image of God. So the best thing I can do for you and for our marriage is to insist that you will be faithful to me. And if you will not be, there's going to be some lines drawn. You call them out to who they're supposed to be. We have a lot of people in our congregation, which I so love and appreciate, that have come out of downtown ministries or come out of addictive behaviors or those kinds of things. And first of all, thank you for being here. I hope you always feel at home here. I'm so proud of you for the progress you've made and the struggles and journeys you've made. But all of you know, and we know, that sometimes what happens is you get to a place where to return to circles you once lived in your life is to return to a place where you can open up those difficult situations. And so the most loving thing to do is not necessarily to go back into those difficult situations because God loves those people. He does love those people. But one of the most loving things you can do is say this: no. I believe that you're called to something better. I believe that the same God that's been working to redeem me is the same God that can redeem you. So the most loving thing I can do is to draw some lines so that you don't see me compromise what Jesus has done in my life. I love you that much. You see, loving people at times draws those lines because it calls out something better for them. The fourth thing you have to do is you have to extend unconditional love to them. Extend unconditional love to people. The Bible says this, that a friend loves at all times. And so here's the key about unconditional love. You separate love from performance. I look at my kids all the time and I say, hey, listen, I love you because you're my son or my daughter. I don't love you because of fill in all the good things that they might have done that week, or I don't love you less because fill in all the bad things they might have done that week. I love them because they're made after my own image. They represent who I am. There's a part of me that created them. And that's what unconditional love does. I love you in spite of or separated from behavior and performance. So you have to do those things to value all people. But then you also have to have a heart change towards people. See, the title of my message is Value All People. When Jesus says love your neighbor, in that context, the neighbor is a Samaritan. But if you go back and look, the Samaritans disagreed with the Jewish people on almost everything. And Jesus says you have to love them too. You have to love people that disagree with you, that don't see life the way you see it. So how do you have a heart change toward those people? Well, the first thing you got to do is this, is you need to develop a humble appreciation for yourself. You need to develop a humble appreciation for yourself. I don't care how successful you are right now. At some point in life, you weren't. At some point in life, you were a knucklehead. You made some dumb mistakes. Before you deal with other people according to your success, go back and deal with other people according to your knuckleheadedness. And develop a good appreciation for who you are. How do you do that? Well, first of all, you need to be very in tune with your weaknesses. And you don't need to look at your weaknesses as a place of shame. You need to look at your weaknesses as a place where you surround yourself with other people that are strong where you're weak. I love that my staff here at Harvest is very strong in places I'm weak. Because if you only had people that were just like Jeremy here. Anyway, we'll just leave that to unhealthy imagination. You need to understand and appreciate your weaknesses and surround, and then when you're dealing with people, deal with them according to your weaknesses, thinking through your weaknesses, not thinking through your strength. The second thing you need to do is you need to put yourself in their shoes. That's where the high road crosses the bridge. Like maybe you're in a situation, you're like, I can't cross the bridge just yet in terms of activity or behavior or action, but I can cross it emotionally. I can think through who they are, what they're going through, what their circumstances are, and then I can still ask myself the question, what would I do in those circumstances? And even if what you would do in those circumstances are different than what they did, you valued them enough to get into their relation to their world to then ask the question, what's the most loving thing that I can do in that moment? But it requires a humble appreciation of yourself. Here's the second thing you've got to do to change your heart. You got to stop. You got to choose to put your focus on others. Choose to put your focus on others. Here's a little secret. You're never going to stop thinking about yourself. You're naturally self-centered. That's just how it works. In fact, there's no place in the Bible where it just says, don't think about yourself. Jesus says, love your neighbor as you're going to love yourself. So what you do, you start putting focus on others like you want to put it on yourself. My dad was brilliant at that. He probably was because I was probably someone that needed to learn this lesson really, really hard. But my dad, before we ever left the house, before we would go to a church event, to a dinner party, to whatever it is, he'd look over and look at me. I mean, the other siblings would be there, but it was always me. He goes, Jeremy, just remember, we listen more than we talk, and we ask more questions than we answer. Great advice. Probably should have learned it better. But then here's the tricky part. It also means you're going to have to learn to love, value, and get along with people that you disagree with. Like, how in the world do I see value in someone that I disagree with 99% of the time? I'll give you the John Maxwell answer in just a minute, but let me give you a way to help remember it. You follow the Breakfast at Tiffany's principle. You guys know that song? I said, what? Don't make me sing. What about breakfast at Tiffany's? Right? Yeah. Okay, see, here's how this works, all right? The song is about a couple. Girl wants to break up with guy because their worlds aren't together anymore. They don't get along on anything. There's nothing they have in common. And so the desperate guy wanting to keep the girl in the relationship off the top of his head says, then I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is an Audrey Hepburn film made years ago. And so the girl responds, well, I guess I remember the film. And then I guess I recall we both kind of liked it. And he looks back and said, well, I guess that's one thing we got. It's like I've got one thing in common. We can build a whole relationship on a movie that we both enjoyed. Maxwell says it this way. If you can't get along, if you can't agree with something on 99% of the thing, then maximize the 1%. Maximize the 1%. Listen, I have sat across from pastors of churches that believe completely different things from me. I've sat across politicians that believe very different things than me. I've sat across parents. I've sat across all kinds of people that disagree with me on something. Some of their beliefs, I would tell you, are dangerous and harmful. But I don't start there with them. I look at the 1%. Well, Jeremy, what kind of 1% can you find there? Well, you know what? They have insecurities about being parents, just like I do. Those that are leading organizations have the same fears and difficulties that it comes with leading organizations. I've had incredibly meaningful conversations with people that we would agree on nothing. I've had meaningful conversations in which their heart has been changed. They felt cared and seen. Why? Maximize the 1%. You have to see them in the image of God. You have to see them in the image that God wants to restore them to be, to do that. And the last thing that creates a heart change is this: take action. Take action. It's not, I hate to say it this way, the thought isn't always what counts. Send the text, make the phone call, send the gift, ask the question. Take a simple step to showing someone that you value them because they're created in the image of God and you want to do the most loving thing for them. Why don't we all stand together? Let me give you an application question for you. Now I'm going to pray and we'll close. What is one simple action you can take this week to show someone in your life that they're valuable to you? What's one simple action you can take to show someone in your life they're valuable to you? Bonus points, someone that you have a hard time getting along with. What's one thing you can do to say, I see you the way God sees you? Because that's the way the high road works. Just bow your head and close your eyes for just a moment. We're going to close here in just a moment, but I don't want to leave the room without making this offer. Maybe you're here today and you're like, Pastor Jeremy, I understand that I am that broken, poor representation of God and that my life is really in a hard place. And I want to be restored to who I really am through the power of Jesus. And if that's you, it's really very simple. It's simply putting your faith to change you in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, then following him for the rest of your life. And if you're here this morning, you haven't ever done that, and you want to do that, then I want to help you. It's a really very simple thing. You just got to tell Jesus. And so you can just pray to him quietly where you are, something like this. Just, Jesus, I'm a broken image of who I was created to be. I don't represent God, or I don't represent your value well. And I want to change. I want you to change me. I want you to restore me to who you've really created me to be. And so, Jesus, I'm putting my faith in your life, your death, and your resurrection. And I'm committing myself to follow you for the rest of my life, from now and into eternity. Now, if you're here and you prayed that prayer, I want to ask you just do one other thing. I'm not going to embarrass you, but I just kind of like to know. And so if you prayed that prayer and you wouldn't mind, do you mind raising your hand so I can just see it? Anybody here? All right, we got one right back here. Raise your hand up one more time so I can see it. There you go. Got one right back there. Very good. What you're getting right now is a card. It just says a gift for you. And what we want to do is we want to help you in that walk with Jesus. And so if you can fill that card out after the service, go over to the Gift for You station. Someone will meet you there. They'll take the information. We're going to give you a gift. It's got a Bible. It's got a book a friend of mine wrote about walking with Jesus. It's got how to read the Bible plan in it. But we want to help you as you walk and follow Jesus in your life. Thank you for making that decision. Harvest, let's give it up. It's great whenever someone makes a decision like that. Thank you for being here. Pastor Corey is going to send us out with a few instructions. Let's turn it over to Pastor Corey.